Hi guys, I wanted to do another art tutorial on art journaling. Basically, I did a art journal spread on around my dreams, so looking at dreams. So I just want to preface it just with a few thoughts about why we would journal and why we would use art to sort of explore spiritual themes, because I think dreams and spirituality are very linked. And in my whole art journey, really, I've always thought of my artistic expression and my spiritual life as being one of the same. And I've become a lot more intentional about that recently. I think it's so important because in today's world, we're so left-brained and we're so caught up in the material things. And when we explore creatively, whether that's in painting or poetry or music, whatever, it really does access the subconscious and the spiritual realms, which are so overlooked. Like, we're really trained to be just very almost one-dimensional in our world. So it's a way of just finding a deeper purpose and a deeper meaning in our lives. Because I've been looking at the mystics, as you know, I've got a whole series of paintings starting based on the mystics and the mystical realms, and one of the ones that I really love is Saint Teresa of Avila, or Saint Teresa of Jesus. And I've probably said it before, but I'm going to kind of give you a bit of a quote, but she likens the soul to a mansion, like a castle, and she said it contains many mansions or many rooms, some above, others below. This is actually a quote from the first chapter of Interior Castle. Some above, others below, others at each side, and in the centre and the midst of them is the chiefest mansion, where the most secret things pass between God and the soul. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, really, when we take that interior journey and looking within the soul, that's where we find God reflected back to us, because God dwells within us. And so it's not like God's out there in the ether somewhere really distant, but somewhere really, really close. And it's a really hard concept to grasp, because like I said, we live in a world that's very material, so we look at things very much like, what we can see, what we can touch, and what we can sense with our five senses. And we really lose that faculty of our other senses and sensing the realm of the spirit and our inward journey. We become cut off from our inward journey, our inner soul, our inner self. We feel like we're cut off from God, but that's never ever the case. It's never ever the case. We're always deeply connected, and through creativity we can access that awareness. So it's not going to change anything as far as where we are with God, because we're always, in Him we move and have our being, but we're also, He lives within us as well. So both are true. So we can access an awareness of that through our creativity and through just those creative expressions through going within. It's very similar to meditation. I guess that's another path of the soul that we can take. But painting is one path. And so, as I was saying before, I've become a lot more intentional about, getting specific ideas and thoughts, and I guess even questions that I have for God, and trying to kind of unpack them in my artwork. And so I did that, the last video that I put up was a painting, and that was very much unpacking that idea of the interior castle and the interior room, like your soul being a room. And my dreams in the same way. I've been really a little bit slack lately in writing them down, but lately I'll actually backpedal. I was inspired to start writing things down a little bit, just because the nature of my dreams lately, I'll explain to you in a minute what the dream was, but sometimes dreams get us, kind of wake us up for our attention. But anyway, so I'll explain my little process, and just before I go through how I actually did the journal spread, just with acrylic paint. But anyway, so what happened was, it's all stuck together. That's okay. So this was my little journaling page that I did. So it was just using acrylic paint quite heavily, and not a limited palette. I just chose all the colours. But I had a rhinoceros show up. Sorry, not a rhinoceros. It's late in the day. I had a hippopotamus show up in my dream, not once but twice. I had no idea at the time. I was like, that's just the most ridiculous thing. So I had to look it up. I had to investigate. And so, and this is what I'm sort of wanting to walk through with anybody who's interested. So it's writing down your dreams. So even if you just when you're doing a little art journal activity or exploring your dreams through art, even if you just write down one or two details, and really this just came of just one or two details of my dream, it's enough to access that realm, and you still flesh it out as you're doing your art journaling, as you're doing your creativity, because you're bypassing the intellect. And so what you're wanting to do is get into an attitude of trust that, spirit will reveal things to you as you go along. So it's very open-ended, and very free. So you want to get out of your head as much as possible, and I know that's really hard. Sometimes listening to music in the background kind of helps you kind of switch off that logical mindset. Anyway, getting back to my hippopotamus. So I looked it up in the online dream dictionaries, because they're actually really helpful, if something, I think, they're helpful as far as you've really got to choose what resonates with you. So if nothing in the description resonates, you just put it on the shelf, and that's okay. But so I looked at the Dream Dictionary. They're quite a strong archetypal animal, and being semi-aquatic was quite interesting too. So my hippopotamus showed up on an ocean, and there was all these explosions happening under the surface of the water. It was like people were blowing up the rocks and everything below the ocean. It was quite destructive. It had like a really dramatic, destructive feel. And so when you're exploring your own dreams, make sure you kind of ask yourself, what's the feeling behind the dream? So number one, writing it down, the first step. Number two, you can check in with your online dream dictionaries for anything that resonates. And number three, what are the things and the archetypes in your dream, the symbols in your dream, how do they make you feel? So this had a dramatic feeling because it was the ocean, it was explosions everywhere. And this hippopotamus swimming out away from the explosion. So I knew that it was something about an upheaval, but the hippopotamus being a strong archetypal animal meant to me that there was this inner strength that I had. And I also learnt that they are very territorial when it comes to when they're actually in the water. They don't go in the ocean, but when they're in the water, the rivers or whatever, they're territorial. And I thought, well, maybe that's something to do with boundaries, or something also that I probably need to unpack a lot more with God, but something that points to an idea that goes deeper into my soul, maybe into my past. In evolutionary terms, surprisingly to me, they're actually connected with dolphins and whales, which explains why that hippopotamus might have been in the ocean. Anyway, I find dreams amazing because they do kind of give you these random things to latch onto, and it's got so much meaning. Anyway, so they also was connected with emotional clearing, creativity, all these wonderful things. So I did not put a hippopotamus in my picture. I did put a little dolphin just as a little symbol and a reminder of myself as to what it was about. But the whole process of doing it, I wanted to just see what unfolded in the picture. So the meaning just grows over time. So you gotta, in this process, put on Bob Ross. That's probably the fourth point, and there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. And use art materials that make you happy, that you feel drawn to. I'm always drawn to acrylic paint just because I love the feeling of how it goes on, and sometimes I'll work with mixed media and collage, but on this one I wanted to do just a lovely painting, and I actually even used a bit of a reference from a photo that I took of the lovely Point Perrin in Western Australia, in Perth. So anyway, I hope you enjoy watching my video on how I painted this. I kind of used really free brush strokes, and I really enjoyed it. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. Thank you for listening. So I have here just the paints that I was using for this project. I chose all my favourite colours. Indian yellow and red gold are beautiful colours in the acrylic range. And so you can see the pages are stained from the pages underneath. So I started off with a black base. So that's just acrylic paint. And black gives like a really good foundation. I always think it makes colours stand out, and it's less daunting than starting on a white piece of paper. So if you're sort of reluctant to put down those first few marks, just putting a colour, it doesn't have to be black, but just painting the whole thing in one colour helps, kind of gets you in the zone. And I'm loosely working from a photo, so I just think sometimes it's nice to have something, a reference to look to, just for a little bit of a guide, especially at the start when you're getting started with it, kind of a thing. Putting in some of the trees. And I've been loving lately scratching into the paint with the back of my brush. It's just, it makes the paint underneath, you can see the texture, and it reminds me of like graffiti or something. It gives like an interesting texture anyway. So I've got here, I couldn't resist putting the presence of the dreamer, or having a person in the landscape as like a witness, or as a presence, is just a wonderful metaphor about being in the here and now, and just really being a part of nature and everything that's going on in nature and everything that's going on in your dream. So it's like that silent witness. So I'm just starting on getting the final details, and you can see I'm putting my little dolphin, or where I'm going to put my dolphin, as my hippopotamus representative. It's funny, I actually googled hippopotamuses in ocean, and there are actually pictures of hippopotamuses you know, in the shallows of the ocean surfing, kind of. So yeah, never let it be said, hippopotamuses can be in the sea. I thought it was really poetic too. I didn't mention in the earlier that hippopotamus means horse, and it's derived from Greek. It means river horse, literally. So that's a rather poetic thing. It's highlighting those trees, and with the clouds in the sea spray, I always like to use dry brush technique. So you can probably see at some point I've got a really coarse brush, thick brush, and you just wipe it on the cloth and get it to be really dry, so it goes on almost like chalk or pastel or something, and it's a lovely way of doing clouds and sea spray. And for my skin colour, I just mixed up all the opposite colours, so a little bit of blue or green. I think I used alizarin crimson and a bit of the Indian yellow, and just truckloads of white. When you're making darker skins, it can be a lot more interesting. You can play around with sort of the different tones, and you know, you're adding blue. Basically it's all the primary colours, blue, yellow, red, and however much red or yellow you put depends on the undertones of the skin. It's really interesting. Skin colours are interesting. Is my little painting on my art journal. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and please subscribe if you haven't, or hit like. I plan on making a lot more of these videos. I really enjoy doing them, and God bless. See ya.